Luca Majno back again with Frank Gregory Ford for another edition of Global News Update on TLBTV, courtesy of the Liberty Beacon Project, where we give you complete backstage up-to-date info as to the developments occurring in our world today. This is it. And Greg is looking out the window trying to see his whale. Apparently there's a whale 25 yards out somewhere. And
yeah.
how are you, Greg?
Whale.
Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you, Luca. Okay. Yeah, that's a humpback whale, and it's one of the more moving things that you can see when you look out your back window at the ocean. And he stays about 25 yards off the shore, and he just casually swims back and forth and spouts. And when he spouts, it actually comes into the meadow behind my home.
Oh, wow.
So how many people do you have on the air that can say something like that?
That's
okay.
Good. Good for you.
So, and it makes me feel better after, first of all, it was a wild weekend for me, and anybody can hear about what I'm telling them and you is from the 9/11, okay, the 9/11 Honorarium, and all the ceremonies that are going on as hosted by Barbara Honegger.
Mm-hmm.
And Barbara, okay, she has actually made the announcement about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, okay, and the chemical weapons,
right,
and who is responsible for finding those weapons, and what is actually going on with the whole show, okay, in terms of 9/11 and why the Bush family actually engineered 9/11.
mm-hmm.
and why they had to go to Iraq to find those weapons of mass destruction, because they sold those weapons of mass destruction to Saddam Hussein. So, as I always say, what do we say? Don't believe me, don't believe us.
Exactly.
By all means, what you do is you go find out yourself. So right now, this information is streaming worldwide out of New York City, okay, on the anniversary of 9/11. Okay, so yes, the listeners will be able to look at us with a whole new sense of respect. All right, as we have found out, and I put it out there, who is responsible, who the father of 9/11 is Dick Cheney, and I also coming up with something very simple. Okay, some of the top women that have died and been violently murdered, okay, like Princess Diana. Yes, she was murdered, no questions about it. Benazir Bhutto, no questions about it. The DC madam, Jean Palfrey, okay, yes, she was violently murdered, and they have all these women have a couple of things in common. One of them is they all dealt with Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney had all of them murdered, okay? It's very simple, all right? We could turn this over to the FBI, and in about 15 years, you might get a comment, okay? But nothing will get done. But the thing is, also, all three women made the mistake of consulting with Hillary Clinton, all right? Absolutely, positively. Okay. Princess Diana, if you remember who she was dating at the time,
mm-hmm.
well, look at the father, okay? And look at what Princess Diana was doing. She was standing up against landmines, unconventional warfare devices, explosives, right, things like that.
Pro-Palestine.
Yes. And then her boyfriend, Dodi Fayed, at the time, fiance, okay, was actually briefed by his father, okay, Mohammed Fayed?
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Mohammed Fayed was part of the original planning, okay, for the 9/11 commission, okay, the commission of that crime, all right? And he made the mistake of talking to his son, and his son made the mistake which got both of them killed, by the way, talking to Diana. And she was in the process of trying to warn the United States that this was going to happen. So, Benazir Bhutto, she had been reelected or elected president. She was returning home after being in exile to Pakistan. And I saw this happen. I saw the actual strike on her limousine. And yes, it was an IED basically placed up against the vehicle. That didn't stop her. It knocked her down. And then she went another 200 yards and she was shot through the chest. And the person that gave that order was Dick Cheney. All right. He ordered the assassination to make sure that the CIA's man in Pakistan stayed in the position and also continued to follow orders and act like Osama bin Laden was still alive. And that was the message that she was going to bring to the American people and the world, was that Osama bin Laden had died years before, and he had died, okay, under the care of Central Intelligence Agency doctors, okay? Yes, he had died of polynephritis, and he had died in the CIA's care, all right? And of course, Gene Palfrey, right now, I hope Mr. Cheney's listening, because believe me, Gene Palfrey, the DC madam, okay, the DC madam had quite a file on you, Mr. Cheney, and Mr. Mohammed Gul, the ISI Pakistani intelligence chief, and Mohammed Atta, all right? Remember Mohammed Atta? Yes, he's the man who supposedly was the leader of 9/11. Well, Jean was nobody's fool, and she saw through the whole attempt to frame her in court. And yes, she was murdered, okay? She was murdered, and it was an old KGB-style technique of murdering a woman, is how she was murdered, all right? So, yes, that story is coming out. Sorry, it's already past the tipping point. Anybody wants to find out what happened to all these women? There it is, right there. Okay, it's already locked and loaded and fired now. So, Mr. Dick Cheney, you better make sure that they don't give you too many more heart transplants, you son of a bitch. Okay, because you don't want to spend the rest of your life in Leavenworth, which you really richly deserve, along with the Bush family. All right. So that's what I have going on right now. I'm listening to something by a man called Kevin Shipp, by the way. Kevin Shipp was a former CIA whistleblower. And yes, he says that, yes, indeed, Hillary Clinton has to be seen to be believed. And Mr. James Comey has been running interference for Hillary Clinton for years now, for years.
This is why this show is specifically dedicated to the making of all of these global news updates. And that's what we're giving you in the past as well as the present. And I think Greg and I can agree together that a more informed populace makes for a more healthy one overall.
Absolutely. And, you know, the thing that is frightening about that supposition is this, Luca, is that so very few people that listen to us are actually open-minded, are willing to actually research any of the things that are going on. And I have never seen a time in this country's entire lifespan, okay, in its history, where thinking people are more important than ever, all right? Thinking people that don't listen to the massive media, okay, as controlled by 6 private groups controlling all the media and information that they are told to listen to, okay? That's what's so terrifying, is we are now seeing government by corporation. And the CIA, yes, has been the intelligence group for corporations was, presently, and probably will be in the future, foreseeable future. All right. They don't do intelligence to protect the people that pay for them. No, they do intelligence collection, collation, correlation, and all the other nonsense. Yes, they do it for the big plutocrats. All right. The big moneyed interests, that's who they're protecting. They're protecting money, they're protecting the plutocrats, they're protecting property, but by God, they are not protecting the people that have hired them and pay for their upkeep. All right. That's the CIA. Okay. So
Well,
that's what we have here. We have a very dangerous situation in this country that it can't even be described, all right, to the normal person. That's why everyone needs to do their own research and get the word out, all right? Get the word out. It's critical.
so this is, Greg, this is how I start snapshot for the day. And this is priceless. I personally dedicate this shot to you, okay? This is something I'm giving you. It's a picture of, I've never seen it before. I might be a baby out of the bathwater, as they say, but I haven't seen this one yet. And it shows George H.W. Bush, a young George H.W. Bush, with his hands in his pockets. And the meme says, can't remember where he was on the day of JFK's assassination.
Mm-hmm. No, he wasn't giving a speech to the Rotary.
And another one, this other one of interest, a man in a suit in a phone call that sounds completely alarmed. And he says, you said that if we fluoridate and we vaccinate and we chemtrail, the people would comply and become sheepishly sleepy. Well, that's not happening. The people are waking up.
Well, hopefully. And what about this hurricane, Luca?
Well, you know what? I have another friend of mine in his 90s, and can I just tell you the story real quick, Greg?
By all means.
This is the story of something special that was given to me. I go to coffee Monday through Friday, usually with, they call them elders. They're over 70 or 80 or even in their 90s. One of these guys, we just happened to hook up, him and we became friendly together. And one day he put his hand in his pocket and he took out this piece of paper that was folded 1,000,000 times. You know how they have those in their pockets, and he unfolded it and he gave it to me. And I'm showing it now. I'm showing it now. And this is what it said. Please allow me. At this stage in our evolution, we are not capable of changing mass consciousness. We are an insane society rushing headlong onto our own destruction. We are not only content with exterminating each other, but we are now bent on destroying all forms of life on this planet, as well as critical life support systems. He was 90 years old, and that was written when he was 20, in his 20s. That's like 70 years ago. And speaking of critical life support systems, in the very words of Dane Wigington at geoengineeringwatch.org, quote, geoengineering programs and processes are completely derailing all of Earth's climate and support systems, life support systems. Which brings me to my second point, and this was brought to my attention by a friend of mine on social media, Samantha, who shares this gem about Harvey and Irma. Did we know before? I didn't know this. It seems that Harvey and Irma were the stars in a certain TV movie with 2 episodes. This was in 2005, with each of their names, Irma striking the U.S. on 9/11. And there are just too many coincidences. And it just, coincidences don't exist in the first place. And another sign of how they're playing with us, today's track of 3 hurricanes are strikingly similar to the 2004 movie, The Day After Tomorrow, when they show the 3 hurricanes lined up, one after the other. And this is a really good example, brought to you by none other than the illegal state of Israel. And thanks to Christopher Bolin at bolin.com, a movie is made by an Israeli agent, Arnon Milkan, in 1978 called The Medusa Touch, in which we see a 9/11 style attack, a simulation in New York City. Money launderers, a senior Israeli agent, okay, and in the same presentation, Bolin uses this. He shows Fox aired a film watched by 13 million people in which a hijacked plane is flown into the World Trade Center in New York in March 2001, 6 months before 9/11. Damn, talk about conditioning, right? And so apparently the so-called father of Israeli intelligence predicts 9/11 in 1979, of course. Okay, but hang on a second. For those of us who know, Mossad is not the intelligence agency of Israel in as much as it is the intelligence agency of the Rothschilds. So for those who are paying attention, there are just too many coincidences, too many loopholes and playbacks, and it's really stupid looking. So I personally think these people are slipping, Greg. I really do, because it's getting too obvious, right?
No, but I don't know if they're slipping because they have most of the money in the world now, and they're not content with that, certainly. And you're right, the Mossad is the finely tuned, hybrid greyhound, so to speak, of the Rothschild European intelligence network, formulated by the Rothschild banking system entirely to be a provider of intelligence wherever it may be collected to provide profit-making capability for the banking, the original seven brothers and their banking systems. Okay, and yes, they do know how to spy. All right, they are the best, and they did write history too. My goodness, they have written history. Okay, anything from revenue generating from the Holocaust, okay, to backing both sides in every single war. Every single war, all right, to where we are today. Okay, so anyway, thank you, Luca. That was very pleasant, by the way.
What was that?
Oh, your snapshots.
Oh, so, I'm not done yet.
Oh,
I just gonna say this real quick. Okay, you know how my grandmother used to say that you're in a relationship, right? And if you have to play detective, you may as well forget it. Right?
Right.
Well,
Certainly.
This guy here has been playing detective with his government for the last 30 years. Okay? Every single day there's something. Every day there's something. One after the other. Okay? Like Monsanto. And then there's Monsanto. Oh, Blackwater. Right? Okay. Then there's the FDA armed raids for raw milk. And what was it? Apricot seeds and B17 Laetrile.
Right.
Then there's Rockefeller Medicine. Oh, this is priceless. His role in destroying not just the earth and its inhabitants through the prostitution of and the monopoly of oil resources, etc., but people's health. People's health was purposely destroyed through bribes and paid shenanigans, medical school grants and or punishments. The carrot and the stick strategy, oppressing natural medicine. And I quote, suppressed were natural medicines that their industry could not legally control or monopolize with drug chemical patents. Natural substances can never be patented, right? Well, Monsanto did exactly the same thing with the birds and the bees trying to pollinate. What do? They invent GMO crops. So when they try to pollinate a GMO plant, they get sick and they die. And then there's vaccines on another day. The list just never stops. It never stops.
Rockefeller originally started allopathic medicine, okay? It wasn't naturopathic medicine or homeopathic medicine, okay? Those were already in existence for 5,000 years, especially with the Chinese. But all over Europe, those were homeopathic and naturopathic medications. And also, thanks to our Native Americans, there was a whole pharmacy of naturopathic cures. But along came Mr. Rockefeller, and who was unbelievably ruthless. And his father was a snake oil salesman. Okay.
Yeah.
Literally had a snake's head and a bottle of whiskey, and that was, and John D. actually saw that and said, I can make a fortune out of this. Okay. Dear old dad has done it. And what he did was he said, okay, we've got all these residues left over from coal processing, oil processing, refining, desulfuring and so forth, cooking, separating bunker crude and so forth. And what he did then was something like this. He said, let's go ahead and turn these into medications. Okay, we'll turn this all into one great big pharmacy of refined petroleum products. Coal tar derivatives, does that ring a bell with anybody? Skin treatments, unguents, and so forth. And that's what he did, what the Rockefellers actually funded, okay? And to start up with their medical schools, their own medical program. And of course, immediately started portraying naturopathic medicine and homeopathic medicine as snake oil cures, kind of like medicine man, shaman kind of stuff. Ha ha, laugh, laugh. Only ignoramuses utilize this when you could have modern medicine like this. Okay, which how many people are being poisoned every year from modern allopathic medicine? What, quarter of a million? Quarter of a million people are either being poisoned, OD'd, or dead, okay, as a result. So that's the big gift that the Rockefellers gave us, who are definitely tied up with the banking family of the Rothschilds.
Right.
Okay, the Rothschilds are the same way. All right. So that's
know
what we
enemy.
have.
We have to know your enemy.
Oh boy, you have to know your enemy. And by the way, all these chemtrails now, funny how there's been big, almost trillion-watt lasers now that have been utilized to fire at these chemtrails. And funny thing is, they're in conjunction with these massive hurricanes that seem to be steered now. They seem to have a steering process going on to them.
Yes.
About ionizing the path to the right, left, or the center of one of these hurricanes. And by the way, there's a fourth hurricane brewing off the coast of Africa. Okay.
I'd like to read something that I got from a friend of mine. Tell me what you think. This is a quote from him. He says, these man-made hurricanes use HAARP and NEXRAD electromagnetic waves to superheat areas of the hurricanes to make them grow in gigantic size.
Right.
The hurricanes are fully under their control, and they can steer them, exactly what you just said, in any path that they choose, even backing them up as they did with Harvey. These hurricanes have been intentionally turned into weapons of mass destruction. He goes on to say this, and this is what I want your comment on, especially. He says, the Jesuits' banking arm, the Rothschilds, own the media. They own 70% of the weather, too. The media is spewing propaganda that this storm is Mother Nature's making and there's nothing we can do about it, intentionally brainwashing the masses that are faithful to that kind of rhetoric. Rothschild owns 70% stake in the weather by now, run by government contractors like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, which write the script, the models for weather. And now everything makes even more sense. But when you get to know your enemy, you find out that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, the Jesuit Vatican gives the orders. The United Nations is the world government. The Rothschilds operating the Crown Corporation, which is called the United States Incorporated. And the military system is owned by the Jesuit Vatican. The deep state shadow government takes orders from the Jesuit Vatican and the Rothschild Khazarian Mafia, RKM, right?
Right. That's right. Yeah, that's what they do, is they use those chemtrails to steer those hurricanes, okay, with trillion-watt lasers, okay, and then they accelerate, okay, they accelerate the speed and the size of those hurricanes, okay, and like I said, what happens with all the destruction that's wrought? Okay, first of all, they're using right now, the one in the Gulf is to cover up British Petroleum's disastrous oil platform that was caused by them not wanting to spend any money on adhering to U.S. safety standards. Okay. And so they have a situation like what is the Prince Albert Sound in Alaska with the Exxon Valdez. Know that oil didn't dissipate and go anywhere. It's still sitting on the bottom of the sound. All right. It's just that simple. And the oil from the BP platform, it's still sitting on the bottom of the Gulf, except unfortunately, it's causing a surfactant effect on the surface of the Gulf of Mexico. And what is happening is it's causing a release of vapor pressure. So what happens is the hurricane moves over, okay, and then it's steered to that area, and it proceeds to take up massive amounts of water, which has had the surface tension removed because of the petroleum surfactant that has been released by BP's efforts. So they're basically putting a big flush, okay, and a big cover up on BP's disaster. And of course, the Bush family, by the way, they're guilty of this one, okay? They did all the cover up along with Dick Cheney, trying to do everything they could. How many people have actually gotten a check in the Gulf that had their businesses wiped out? Anybody? Okay. That's what I'm saying, all right? It's kind of ludicrous, the whole thing. So that's why this hurricane is there to cover up the fact that that broken seam on the ocean floor has been pumping oil nonstop. Okay? And it has been staying on the bottom, okay? It's bunker crude. It looks like warm peanut butter, okay? So yes, and it worked so well, this one in Texas, nobody challenged it, nobody questioned it. What did that idiot say? What did the village idiot say that there's more love than oil in Texas? Something like that, or water. I forget what he said, idiot. But anyway, that's the attitude, okay, about the Texas hurricane. And it worked so well, nobody challenged it. Hey, we've got 4 more hurricanes headed this way. As a result, folks, you heard it here on our station, Luca. Now, by the way, on a closing note, okay, I found out that James Comey, who testified before the Senate, okay, to make Donald Trump look really bad, well, it appears that Mr. Comey was paid $6 million by McDonnell Douglas Corporation while he was working there. And virtually, it was Mr. Comey who made sure that all the weapons, okay, that when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and she was making money off of those weapons and shipping them all over Syria, okay, and they were supposed to have gone to the Libyan rebels. It was Mr. Comey who ran legal interference for her when she was doing this, when she was selling surface-to-air Stinger missiles, okay, for $8 million, okay, of course, just on the missiles alone. And it was Mr. Comey running interference while Hillary Clinton made sure that all those weapons paid for with taxpayer dollars, well, all those weapons were going to ISIS.
Right.
ISIS. Is there anybody that doesn't understand what I just said? Any of our listeners who don't understand what was going on as we've been telling them? How many times have I told your listeners, just, that you can remember, Luca? 8, 10, 15 times? Well, it's on television now. You can see it now. And you can find out exactly why Mr. Comey was fired. That's why he was fired. He was doing all these illegal criminal issues with Hillary Clinton. And yes, Hillary Clinton, and Mr. Comey. And I found also, remember Whitewater, the Whitewater issue with the Clintons? Guess who ran interference for them to make sure that they weren't prosecuted? Mr. Comey. Okay, I'm not the brightest bulb in the box. I always say this, okay? But I think they call that conflict of interest, don't they? Yeah. Now, I think Mr. Comey is ripe for an investigation himself, okay? And I also think Mr. Mueller is ripe for an investigation, a real investigation. All right, not a phony baloney FBI investigation where it'll take years to do absolutely nothing, and then he can't comment on when it's all over. They can't say anything.
Right.
That's what we have here. we have corruption beyond definition of the term.
And I'm just really proud to be a part of it, Greg. And I can't thank you enough for your wisdom, as I always say, and your intel. And until next time, thank you again. I really appreciate it, and it's never ever gone to waste what we're doing, and we can't thank our listeners enough. Thank you again.
Okay, welcome, Luca.
We'll see you again.
Thank you so much.